So, let's take a look at some of the history because you're saying also like there are other cycles that are repeating that are and you're right. There's an acceleration. When I think of an acceleration, I think of like when you have a barbecue and you put the accelerant onto the coals to make it go
Right.
whoosh. I feel like these what those lunar nodes are doing.
Agreed. 100% agreed. And you can see it. And yeah, it comes in as that accelerant to force, because it's collective now. We're all moving
Yes.
towards the same thing.
And so some of the cycles, that we have for like, say, Uranus and Gemini that we've been talking about this year with like the American Revolution or the Saturn Neptune conjunctions, which then, brought down the Berlin Wall and like Tiananmen Square. All of these events happened also during an Aquarius North Node.
Why I feel like that's just no surprise, right?
For the people.
For the people. For the people.
And the last
Yeah.
time Pluto was in Aquarius, we had the American Civil War, or no, the American Revolution. Sorry.
Revolution. Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
Exactly.
so,
So
do you want to go down some of the timelines that we have about just like how the Aquarius North Node has like decentralized parts of of culture of society?
sure. I mean, there's so much there that, you know, has happened, like you said, over time, um, in terms of that shift. One of the biggest pieces, I think, of as we started to talk about before, is the financial side of things. It's
Yes.
one of the easiest ones to see and track. Sometimes those underpinnings of what's happening collectively, um, we can miss because we don't see it in the same way. But it has definitely been tied to, as you've coined it, which I love, this idea of decentralization. You know, the breakdown of traditional financial structures when something gets too much, too big, or out of control in terms
Yeah.
of, so market crash. The Great Depression is one of the, you know, big ones that happened during an Aquarius North Node. And when people talk about this market, I've been doing a lot of reading and research. They say, and we can see it, the Dow has never been this large.
Yeah.
It's almost unfathomable to me. I remember when it hit 10,000, and now we're over 40 or where I stopped tracking. But it's not if, it's when. Will
Mm-hmm.
it, the bubble have to burst, similar to other bubbles bursting, the tech bomb, tech
Yeah.
crash and things like that. But I think the underpinning is what's not working. And it's some of the things you spoke about. These inflated markets are creating billionaires, trillionaires in ways that we've never seen before and leaving people behind at what
So
is the
many people
cost?
behind.
So
Yeah.
many people behind. It was interesting because I think in 0708 we saw digital currencies make an effort to appear and it didn't stick the way they thought it would.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it'll be very curious to see what happens this time around because I think without that Aquarian, I think we've needed to learn some things along the way. And
Yeah.
that's the beautiful gift of the nodal path, um, of how it works backwards. Because it just didn't, the idea has stuck, but it's not done the thing that it was meant to do, which is create that system of more decentralized in the
Yeah.
banking and the markets. And so what needs to break down in this financial structure? What has broken down? Market crashes, depressions, all of those things. And it's just been a very curious thing. Also, what you'll see from a cultural perspective, which I find also fascinating. One of the things we're moving away from, so Leo energy,
Mm-hmm.
star power, and
Mm-hmm.
very egocentric. And so it will be very interesting because, and for, you have a very business oriented audience, right? So we are already starting to see some of it in the entrepreneurial space
Yeah.
of, the gurus falling from grace. Or actually, what I find fascinating, they're removing themselves.
Yes.
They're removing themselves. They've decided that that doesn't work for them anymore, which I love. Like versus a fall from grace, I would rather people pull back and say,
Yeah.
I see, because I've coined this era guide by your side era.
Mm.
Um, because I believe that's what we're looking to create. That is the I within the we. I want to work with someone whose I know isn't trying to be above me, but I'll
No,
never have access to. Now that's always been the way I am.
same
You know,
here.
I mean, I have Aquarius is in my 10th house. It fits on my career line. There's no surprise that I'm doing astrology, but um, but so that's a fascinating piece. It will be fascinating. You've seen in the past cycle, in the Piscean era, Pisces rules the music industry, film, all that
Mhm.
creativity. And you saw them struggle, right? To find new footing, to find the way of being, to find a way to bring collective message that wasn't just star powered,
Yeah.
you know? And so it'll be interesting to see the shift because we're not going to go to a theater to just see some major
Oh,
movie star.
celebrity. Yeah. Celebrity
The
culture is
celebrity
over.
celebrity culture is over, the guru culture is over. And I think that's the gift that Pisces gave us because in the Pisces era in the 60s, that's when we saw cults.
Mm.
Um, we didn't see as much of that, but in a different way. Cultish, you have a Taylor Swift, energy
Oh,
Swifties. People identified themselves, but it's a bit of a community. But will she be able to translate that
now that
in
she's
this
married.
era? Will she translate
Yeah.
that to it feeling like a
She,
community
she has
versus,
that Aquarius. She has Aquarius North Node.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So she's having a nodal return. I think of all people, she has the capability of doing that. But,
Yeah.
you know, will others be able, we've already seen a lot of fall from grace. And so what comes next will be the curious piece.
I want to go back to kind of the financial cycles that you have been researching. Could you explain more how, just exactly how Aquarius is at the bottom of the Wheel of Fortune?
So the opposite. So think about it, right? When things are in Leo, the opposite of Aquarius is going to be Leo. That's going to be the boom markets, right?
Gold is
It
like,
gold is,
yeah,
gold was super high. And so the opposite end of the markets is so Capricorn is where we build things, right? The nodes work backwards. So Capricorn is where we build things. Sagittarius is where we're going to expand and broaden our horizons. Scorpio is going to dig in and go, hey, what's not working about this? Right? Like, what's the inner peace? And then we get to Libra. We want some balance and fairness. We get to Virgo and we're going to put some systems and structures in place. Leo's that midpoint checkpoint and we just keep going around the wheel. And so it's a beautiful building upon that happens, but we have to hit a bottom in order to get to Capricorn. What isn't working? What's broken? We have to see. And I think collectively I've felt like we've been in a wake up call in general. And I feel like it had to get so bad
yeah.
to get people to participate again. It had to be so in their face. And the unfortunate piece is the Gemini cycle with the acceleration back then of information during the pandemic, people just got overloaded with data, with information,
Mm.
prior to that. And so we know how to sift through the data, but where are we headed and what do we really need? We've had to be like smacked up upside the head, I feel like, in some
Yeah.
cases, to be like, wake up, this isn't working for everyone, and you can have a say. You can have an impact, each one of us in our own way.
So, what do you think kind of the financial bubble bursting is going to look like this time?
This is something I'm curious about. I don't know that I have a solid answer for that. I think that obviously at the forefront of all this is AI, and it is
Yes.
obviously, and with the North, with with the Gemini, Uranus and Gemini, it's Uranus is gonna like
Blow up.
blow things up. And it has, but you can hear the voices on the outside edges saying, "Oh, wait a minute, this isn't sustainable."
Yeah.
The North Node in Aquarius wants things to be sustainable. So I think this push pull of what's going to have to rein this in and where's it going to go, the over evaluations, I feel like, are going to be where people are going to say enough. Any new technology. So let's go back to the iPhone and think
Yeah.
about it. In '07, when you went to go get an iPhone, it
Hmm.
was free. It was free.
Yeah. With
The
your
phone
data
was
plan.
free. With your data plan, the phone was free. Every new technology requires mass adoption. So we've been in an age of mass adoption so that they can, infiltrate this technology across all systems and structures so that you feel like you can't live without it. Well, now, what does it cost? What does your iPhone cost?
Oh,
There
yeah.
is there is no longer a free cell phone. It doesn't exist. Now, I find it interesting. We are being like, we have data plans, right,
Yeah.
for AI, but it's not sustainable. I think what you'll see is that as the cost of infrastructure, which we already know is
Yeah. It's
they're
already
they're
going up.
bearing they're
They
bearing it,
hook
but
you.
they hook you. I saw an article yesterday that said that the days there computers, the laptops we're working on right now, they're going to get so expensive because of where all of the infrastructure is being built. It's no longer going to be built for the personal computer. You could have a $10,000 personal computer in the very near future.
Oh, yeah. Because chips, they're all
Their
going to
chips,
the
they're
data
going
centers.
here, not
Yeah.
here. So I'm like, oh, do I need to buy another laptop sooner rather than later?
Well, these, I don't like that question that I asked you in terms of like, what do you see about like kind of the decentralization of, so when we think about like a financial crash, it's not necessarily like a crash because like everybody's going to be out of money. It's really a redistribution of
Yes.
wealth, right? And
Yes.
that kind of the egalitarian part of the decentralization. And so right now everything is inflated. We have our first trillionaire, which like what are you going to even do with that money? Does that money, like that money is just symbolic too. It doesn't
It's
even,
air. I mean, it's air.
it's
It's not
air,
even, it doesn't
right?
even really exist.
And I live, I'm in Hawaii right now, but I live in San Francisco, and San Francisco is the home of OpenAI. It's Anthropic for Claude, and they're both on their way to IPO, right? And because they're both on their way to IPO, real estate prices in San Francisco have been insane because everybody is like, I have to buy my house now before all of these tech bros are going to get their IPO money. And houses that would normally going for just like last year, $1 million are easily going for $2 and $3 million, which is, it's wild. Like when you think about like a San Francisco
Yeah.
house, we're talking about like a 1,200 square foot house.
Right. Yeah.
It's not even that much. And so to me, like what's going to happen, one of the things that I've been wanting to happen is this idea of, it's been played around a lot, is universal basic income.
Hmm.
Because the thing is, as if AI does what government wants it to do, what industry wants it to do, there's going to be so many people without jobs, without income. And who's going to be buying iPhones? Who's going to be buying food? Who's going to be able to pay rent or to buy a house because everything is so out of reach? And so it's going to be time for these billionaires and trillionaires to pay what's due instead of just
And you're
holding and taking.
and you're seeing this idea floated that could fund that already.
Yeah, they could pay off
Whether
debt of countries. Sorry to interrupt you, but it
no,
infuriates
but
me.
you can see that they're talking about taking profit from these companies and building these, funds to help support. It hasn't the the dots aren't all getting connected, and I think it will take the entire Aquarius nodal cycle
Yeah.
for each
At
piece
least
of this puzzle to crash. You're going to see housing, obviously.
the
Um,
last one in 2007 to that
yeah,
housing.
housing market
Yeah.
crash, the housing market crash, because there's only so many people that come by when there's no more buyers that can afford a $2
Yeah.
million house. It just is. There's only so many people getting money from that IPO. It's an inflated market driven by whom,
Right.
right?
And there's no trickle
And
down, let me just say.
no. So you have housing, you have the financial piece. So all of these pieces, again, I believe like we're in an age where it's really easy to scroll past. So our job as leaders and change makers is to pay attention, is to say enough's enough, is to not buy into, the narrative that this is for the greater good. Go let Musk put these data centers in space and in the ocean. Like, is it going to hurt things or what's it going to do? But do we need all that? So I think the gift is as change makers, if we can pay attention, do the research, do the reading. We've learned to have the filter. When the North Node was in Gemini, we learned to take a lot of data, a lot of information and filter it down.
That was back in 2020.
Went in 2020. And, and then we know what we need to make home and community real for ourselves. That was North Node in Taurus.
Mm-hmm.
And in North Node in Aries, we learned how to quick fix things. And then Pisces shows us the vision, the dream. What do we want? How do we want our life to be? And we've learned, in my opinion, to connect the heart and the head, both brains.
To be more human.
To be more human. And, that's why people were calling the Piscean era, people were talking about the trust recession. And I'm like, no, like that's not what's happening. We have a wiser buyer. We have a wiser human who's learned to trust their own inner wisdom.
Yeah.
And so I think it is marching orders for all of us, to not get scared, but do our part, right?
Yeah.
Instead of what I saw happen in 07 and 08, because I had a business where, and people still came where I live in, not far from you in Santa Cruz. People weren't as affected by the recession financially, but they politically and personally felt a responsibility to pull back. And they didn't know what was going to happen.
Yeah.
So they would spend less, So what is our collective responsibility? There we go. Aquarius North Node. What is our collective responsibility to the we? And then as an I, what is your part? Everybody as a change maker, as a leader has their part. And so what will it look like? All those parts and pieces are going to show their fraying edges.
Yes.
They are. I imagine personally that I don't see, although it's funny because I was like, well, what will happen to the I think banking, stock market, like all those financial layers
Commerce,
need a reboot. They need to be revisited, revised, refreshed. But, does it take another massive crash? I mean, to make that happen, I mean, you look at Social Security, they're saying
no
within
more.
7 years, no more, so in the US. So what has to shift? But we're funding other things, but does it serve the collective? And you're seeing that. And I think it'll be very fascinating politically, as the elections come. And we look at what you can see where people are leaning, this new, what are they calling it? I mean, they've already been around. So democratic socialists,
right. Like Mondani. He's like, I'm a socialist. Yeah. He's just like,
I'm a socialist. I'm a democratic socialist. Yeah. So there's this, because it is, the people want to float these other ideas of how do we, if we don't have the job base, but we're still going to need people to do the cooking, the cleaning. Like we can't robot it all, nor do we have the infrastructure to do that. So I think this is a huge breakdown of all those power structures, and that can be scary for people, but you have a voice. That's, my message is like, you have a voice and you have a part. I want to be a part of a ripple effect. So if I can support leaders and change makers in feeling confident to get their message out in the world and do their work in the world. That's what I want to be
Yeah.
doing. And just being aware is the key.
I feel so grateful. I'm going to plug a little bit. My upcoming book,
Yes,
Astrology
perfect
for Change
timing.
Makers, is coming out right around this, right after in September, right after the node changes. And so hopefully this book really catches that ignition of that Aquarian. And because, again, we are in the age of Aquarius. And I think the reason why you and I get along so well is because our philosophy on leadership, on change making is so aligned. And in this age of Aquarius, we are all being asked to be the leaders, and that we are change makers if we want to make the place, the world, a more just and beautiful place. If we're here to care for others, if we're here to, steward the land, make the environment better, just that makes us change makers. And to be a leader isn't about, how much power, wealth, influence you have. It's about taking action and doing the right thing, that collective responsibility that in Hawaiian we call it, there's a word called kuleana. And in this kuleana, like, our communities are our circles, and we each have a part. The top down hierarchy is just, it's no longer, we can't depend on that. There's no security net that these governments and these institutions promised us.
And that's the job of Pluto in Aquarius, and the job of the North Node in Aquarius is to break down those top down structures and flatten them out. What does that look like? It doesn't mean, we don't know yet. We're
No.
building it, and that's the gift. Like, so I feel hopeful. I know that a lot of people feel scared, but when we we can see what happens collectively when we come together. We can create change. We don't have to just take what's handed to us. That's what this country was built on back,
Yeah.
you know,
The last
250
Pluto in
years ago,
Aquarius.
the last Pluto in Aquarius. It was built on moving away from power that didn't work, the power that was out of touch. Think about it, like
Literally
power that was literally out of touch with what the people needed. And
across the
so
Atlantic.
I do believe that Hawaiian energy and other indigenous, other populations, like I do see, like, and believe that we will become more community centric.
Well, thank you so much, Sheri, for joining me today. How can my listeners connect with you and find you?
I think the best place to connect with me, where I am a little mini community of sorts, would be on Substack. So it's just Sheri Moise on Substack, but the publication is Data Over Drama. So that's where I share, relevant articles and posts of what's going on. And if you're an entrepreneur who wants like guidance through these cycles, then the paid tier will allow for that as well.
Wonderful. I'll have all of those links in the description. So definitely follow Sheri. Sheri has just so much insight, especially when you're planning your launches and timing. She's your go-to person. So thank you for joining me and sharing your wisdom with the lunar nodes moving into Aquarius and Leo. I learned so much from you as usual, Sheri.
Thank you for having me, and I'm so excited for everyone. I got a little preview of your book, and I'm excited for everyone, and I'm excited to read the whole thing, and I'm looking forward to it being out in the world and supporting all these amazing humans that are our leaders and change makers in this new era.
Wonderful. All right, everyone. We will see you in just a bit. Bye for now. So thank you again. If this podcast has touched your heart, please share it with others. Please leave me a rating and review so we can reach the hearts of even more change makers like you.